So, we go again. Episode number 3 of the Darkness to Light podcast. And this one I'm going to be talking about, there's a few subjects I was hoping to cover. I've had some really kind of powerful acupuncture early this morning, and I've been like a kind of bag of spanners all day. So we'll see how this one goes. I always remember it, and it's different every single time. When I do this work, I need to remind myself sometimes that I speak for a living. That's what I now do, which is really interesting for me. Someone who grew up in building sites and in terms of my working experience, and it's different every single time. And a lot of the times I'm coming into it in a different way. And interesting, episode number 2 that I did, I felt great when I did it. And this needs to be fun for me, it needs to be something that's easy and repeatable if it's going to have any kind of longevity. And the last one was easy, and I really enjoyed it. And this one tonight, I've been thinking about it the last couple of days, a lot of stuff that's been going on the last couple of days. To do with the Godcast going out, and also there's an event on this Sunday, Breathe and Believe, which the free event, which is a kind of snapshot of the work that I do here at the Vortex. My own work, the breath work, the relaxation, the meditation, and then a wee bit of cold exposure as well. Sunday morning up at Edinburgh Portobello is the plan, and the event has been getting shared. It's been going really well actually. It's been like kind of, I'm going to say wildfire, but the people have been passing on it in gratitude to anybody who has been sharing it. Really appreciate every single bit of it, and all of you. And just before I come on and started this tonight, I always remember that the intention with the work is to try and help people, and that's really as simple and as profound as I try and make it. Whether I'm going to talk in front of a class, or whether it's a one-on-one, or whether it's 1,000 people, the big kind of the corporate events or whatever, then my intention is to help people always, and it always seems to work out okay. And that's very much where I am tonight as I sit down, and again the intention is to spread the stuff that I've picked up over the years and try and help as many people as possible. And one of the challenges that I faced, I suppose, that I knew I was going to face, was resistance from them, which kind of came a wee bit yesterday on one of those posts, one of that had been shared, and somebody along the lines of, there was somebody else last week, but yesterday it was basically like somebody calling it out as a cult, which for me online, I never really get caught up in arguing with anybody. I don't fight online. I don't sit down and try and like turn them round, or let them see my point of view, or make me right, or try and make them wrong. That's never the way that I've done it since I've been online. As I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, the minute anybody comes in with anything other than the kind of, if they're on the same page, anything other than support or understanding what it is that I'm trying to do, then I really just take them out of the picture. I will block them instantly. That's always the way that I've done it. There's no intention to fight from me whatsoever. And the reason behind that is most people have no idea what it is that I'm actually doing. I think back to the way I was before, and if I was to hear me talking about this stuff, and some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight absolutely come into that category. Then if I was to hear me talking about this stuff, especially if you see the posts online, and the way that I did the post when I came out in 2016, when I came online, never been online before, never done social media, hated Facebook. Every time I heard about it, or I seemed to see it, it was always somebody kind of posting a picture of a dinner or a night out, and that just wasn't for me. I was always too busy and too kind of, I suppose, living my life compared to the way that the people on Facebook seemed to be at the time. When I opened the centre in 2016, the reason I come on to social media was purely to share the stuff that I'd been picking up myself, and also, again, that intention to try and help people. So that was the only reason that I decided to get in the social media route, both on Instagram and Facebook. And anybody that did come along the way, anybody that I came across, or paths crossed, and we were not in alignment with each other, or on the same page, or anybody who was having a go, I never really ever fought. I would just really take them out of the picture and basically move away. And it was purely because they had no idea 99.9% of the time of what it was I was actually doing. And the posts and the way that I did the posts, especially the poetry. The poetry is fascinating to me. I love the poetry. The poetry is really for me. I wake up with those poems almost every morning, or certainly after my meditations. I will come through my meditations and just take up and put a post up and share the stuff that I'm doing, whether it's the events or whether it's the services or the work that I'm doing. From the very beginning, for whatever reason, very quickly get into using poetry, explaining some of the concepts and the ideas of what it was I was actually doing. And we add that together with the subjects that I'm talking about, which namely are, spirituality, a lot of talk about, God, a lot of talk about awareness, a lot of talk about the intentional life, this intentional path that I am absolutely on, and, sharing with people and teaching people, how to live an intentional life and then all the benefits of that. I can only imagine, some people when they're looking in, the word God, even as a starter for 10, has so many connotations. When people think of God, they think of religion straight away. And when that person yesterday, they basically called the event on Sunday as a cult. When you look up the meaning of cult, it goes straight away to, it's right into, like a religious organisation where there's a designated leader, and everything goes towards the leader. And anybody who knows me and knows my work personally knows that's the furthest thing for what I'm trying to do here. I am all about self-reliance. I'm all about getting it for yourself. I don't want to be the man. The man or the woman I believe is God. And I'm going to talk a wee bit about God tonight and what God means to me, so we can clarify that before we move forward. But the comment that they made, and I played a wee bit. I was in such a good mood yesterday that I decided to play a wee bit. And this is all about awareness, and awareness. There's different understandings of awareness and what awareness actually means. The power of awareness for me is how you see things. The power of your, the level of consciousness that you're coming in at. Will dictate what you're able to see, and again I think back to my own experience of growing up. I used to sit in those the working vans, reading the newspapers and listening to the radio and debating the football and current affairs and just blokes, just guys, that you can imagine the level of like literal gutter conversation a lot of the time because of the environment you're in and where I was at the time, as a Wayne, a young man. And that level of consciousness, is where a lot of people are. That's where they still are, and I get that and I see that. They believe what's in the newspapers. They believe what's in the news. They see these influencers. I maybe I'll talk a wee bit about that tonight. And they take it as fact. They take whatever it is told to them. And you see it a lot with older generations. When the way they got their information was through the news and the media. So there's always that thing that the fact that somebody took the bother to write it down or to present it, then it must be true. That's certainly the case with a lot of elderly people that I know, older than me. Even my dad's generation, the news and what goes on in the news, that's a fact. That's just the way that it is. And a lot of people now know that isn't the case. There's loads of evidence as to how certain organisations, how they do things. And for me, people who are having a go, somebody looking in at the video for Breathe and Believe and the pictures, who don't know who, they've never seen what I do, they don't know who I am, they're just basically taking a snapshot and then they're calling it out as a cult. That to me is a lack of awareness because they have no idea what it is that I'm trying to do with this work. It's all about self-reliance, it's all about empowering people and helping people so they get it for themselves, which is the exact opposite of everything that a cult is. So for me, I talk about the different levels of awareness in this world. And ordinary levels of awareness, the circus, people, just going through their life believing everything that's going on in terms of the government and the media and the stuff that's going on in the world. That's a circus to me. That literally feels like a circus. The whole thing is like a circus. It's basically watching the masses getting entertained, and going about their day-to-day life, just in this normal, ordinary levels of awareness. That's where I started. That's where I came from. Just going through my life that way. And then, because of the journey that I've been on, the spiritual journey that I've been on, which is all about awareness, when you sit in meditation long enough, in silence long enough, then you will experience different things, and everything I'm talking about here isn't for a book, it's from my own direct experience, so when I'm talking about spirituality and meditation and God, and the realizations and the direct experiences, which is the most important part, then it's I'm coming from a different perspective than a lot of people who come in and they're giving their take on it. So for me, somebody coming in, having a go, having a shot at it from that circus level of consciousness, I would always call them a clown. Because they're in the circus, and that's funny to me, but they don't seem to find it funny, when somebody's going through, just the kind of, and it's like it's very much like you think back to the Roman times and the Circus Maximus, they keep them entertained, the loaves and the bread and the fighting and as long as the masses are entertained, which is very much what's going on in a lot of the world just now. You see it every single day, whether it's the football or whether it's the fighting or the UFC is a big one, that's a huge one for me, like the WWE, the people entertained in picking a side and choosing what side you're on and who you're basically rooting for. That's like circus level consciousness for me. And those who are in that, and there's nothing wrong with that. God bless the circus and God bless the clowns. But for me, and with this work and what I'm looking to do with it, if somebody comes and has a go, then obviously, certain times, as I did yesterday, as a wee bit of sport, I will jump in and I will call them out on it. And then interesting to see when you look in the particular lady. Who had a go at me. I looked onto her page, onto her Facebook page, just to see what I was dealing with, and she's walking up and down with a kind of anti-vax placard, and she was sharing it from like 2021, where she was at some sort of rally, and she was marching up and down, and her literal comments were like, "Check me out and my ego," at this march, and sharing it, and the juice that she was obviously getting from it. And straight away, again, there's a straight clown. There's nothing that I can do with that, because when you know what I know, and again from experience, in terms of the truther movement, which is something I'm also going to talk about, and the people that are run about that, there's many levels to this, and basic waking up, basic awareness of waking up, which has happened a lot since 2020, 2021. People are waking up. When the world stopped, a lot of people get the chance to basically open their eyes. They had the space for the first time in their lives to have a look at themselves, and a lot of them to look at the world. And then obviously because of the V word, the shots that were getting dished out, then a lot of people, were put in situations and information that was being spread at the time, where people, were starting to see things in a different way. And those different ways in the world, that's something that I came across as far back as probably 2015-16 was the first time I was made aware of them. When I really saw the kind of the horrors of the world, and people talk about rabbit holes and learning, the kind of truth for information. That was me a long time ago, probably going back 8 or 9 years was the first time I was made aware that the ways of the world and the way that I believed it to be, probably and possibly weren't the way that I thought it was. And I remember the day that I realised that almost every single thing that I thought that I knew to be a truth was a lie. And you see that a lot just now with the kind of Hollywood stuff and the celebrities and all that kind of stuff. I went through that way back then. The stuff that they came out about and I don't like to even talk about it. And I'll explain that, why I don't like to talk about it. But the stuff that came out, in terms of the horrors of the world and how bad it is over the last couple of years. I went through that a long time ago, and that was on the back and after 17, 18 years of devotional, spiritual practices, and I got to a point where, when somebody pointed out to me, a good friend of mine pointed out at the time, it started what was getting sprayed in the skies, which I couldn't believe, the fact that there would be some sort of manipulation, which is all, it's a fact now, isn't it? People, we know what's going on and what they're putting into the skies. But the time when I heard that for the first time, it was like, nah, that's madness. Why would they do that? And it's all, it's all stuff that's been, it's documented, and it's been admitted, that's part of it. We just seen it recently in Dubai. with the floods and all the kind of the cloud seeding that's going on over there, you know. So a long time ago, the stuff that people have been opened up to the last few years, I went through it all, and I can remember at the time, you know, speaking to my wife, God bless her, and I would say like, but you need to see this, you know, you need to. I couldn't believe it, you know, because you think you're the only one that's ever seen it. And it really took the wind out of me. It really did. It really affected me negatively, especially a lot of the kind of stuff to do with kids, and it was really difficult to deal with. It almost broke me when I realised how serious it was and the horrors of the world. And then kind of coming through that and coming out the other side of that, after being in it for probably about a year or so, you know, and at the time there was a lot more videos online, there was a lot more evidence than there seems to be now with the kind of censorship. I get a lot of the kind of original stuff, and the awareness of waking up and seeing the horrors of the world. I believe that's a good thing, to see how bad it is, really, because then you can do something about it. But you know, the challenge then becomes, you know, like if you spend too much time in it, you know, then it'll make you sick, it'll make you no well. As I used to take it to my wife, and she would say like, I don't care, you know, that there's like, stop that. And really, on a really basic level, there's really not that much you can do about it, you know. And I suppose for all the truthers out there that are spending their time, you know, shouting about how bad it is and what's wrong with the world, and this is why I have huge challenges with people at Russell Brand. I really do. There's something about that guy that he is not for me. He has never been for me. And you need to remember, he's an actor. That man's an actor, and your man Rogan's the same. Rogan's a presenter. He passes himself off as a comedian, which is hilarious. That's probably funnier than anything that he's ever said. The evidence that he's not a comedian is just the fact that you need to just watch any stuff to see the jokes and the bits, as he calls them, the stuff that he does, and how unfunny it is. But he continuously passes himself off as a comedian, this working comedian. But the man himself, when you look back at where he came from, he's a presenter. You know, he's and the stuff that they're talking about, the stuff that they're sharing, especially Russell Brand, you know, when Russell Brand goes on and he's shouting and bawling about how the horrors of the world and what they're doing and the problems there is, as a truther, you know, and the way he's putting it across is that, you know, is to help us, you know, really simply, you know, to try and understand it in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, how does that make you feel? And that's the starter for 10. How does that make you feel when you look at the world and you see the war would be one for having a look at the war that's going on in Russia just now, in Ukraine, in fact all over the world, you know, and then you know you think about how the recent involvement of America, and then we're normally not far behind them, you know. So the minute you start to think about that, then you're in a different place. Then you start to worry and you're starting to be fearful, and you're considering your own position and the position of your family. And you know, I've got a young family, 22 and 20, young. They're young adults. But obviously as a parent, you know, you start to then, you know, your concerns are, you know, natural. And, you know, just by looking at that information, looking at the television, the television, as I used to call it, but looking at the television and seeing what's going on in the world, you know, straight away, how does it make you feel? You know, and your nervous system will react. The autonomic nervous system is automatic. So when you see the horrors of the world, then absolutely there will be stress getting released into your system. You know, there's all sorts of stuff being released into your system because you're getting straight into fight and flight. That unconscious response is something that you can't do anything about. You know, so when you see, you know, what's going on in the world, and then you think that might come to us, that might challenge you, you know, directly and personally, then you've absolutely got a response that, you know, it'll make you sick. You know, it makes you lesser than you are if you never saw it. You know, so straight away, just by looking at it, just by taking in the information and seeing it, that's you in the wrong place right away. And this is the challenge where your man Brand is talking about it all the time, and he's shouting and bawling about the horrors of the world and who's wrong, and you know, and the number one, it's making you feel bad, but number two, there's nothing you can do about it. There's not a single thing at a certain level that you can do about it. There is a higher level, I believe, you can do something about it. But in terms of, you know, when you see it and you go and you get caught up in it, and you know, you protest as that lady did, you know, watching that video of her marching up and down with her sign about, you know, about the government and what they're trying to do is and suppression, all that kind of stuff. I get it, you know, and it may be true, but at the same time, there's not a single thing you can do about it. I mean, what are you going to do? Take down the government and take down the military complex, and it's just insanity, when you think that there's anything you can do about it, so nobody really wins. We certainly don't win, because it's making us feel worse. And then there's a kind of place of hopelessness where there's nothing you can really do, and protesting does not work. It really doesn't. And then we understand the law of attraction in terms of, where you put your attention and where you put your focus, then it's going to get bigger. So all of a sudden, you start to realise that perhaps, that by you focusing on it and you worrying about it and you shouting about it and even by like verbalising it, by trying to stop it, which is a pure intention, then that may be manifesting it and allowing it to come to fruition, even though you don't want it. So there's many levels to that, and that's why, for any of you truthers out there, God bless you all. I once too was there, but waking up in the basic level of awareness, is to see the horrors of the world, and then shouting and bawling about it, and then giving it to people, and shoving it down their throat just because you can see it. It doesn't help anybody, it really, and it makes the whole situation worse. I do believe. I think we need to see it, the world, for what it is. The world is absolutely in darkness just now. It's been under a veil of darkness for a very long time, long before we got here. And who's to say, how long that's going to continue, this awakened wave that's going on just now over the last few years, especially the internet, and the information that's being spread. The amount of light that's going about just now is an absolute threat to that. And I believe a lot of the challenges that we're facing in the world just now is coming through divine order. I really do. The world, and we talk about and we look at the challenges that we face when we think about things like nuclear war and even conventional war, and the damage that it does, and the damage that man, which is the absolute parasite to this earth, what the industrial age has done and what greed has done to this earth. On so many different levels, you think of the levels of extinction and the pollution in the rivers and what's in the air and what we've actually done to it, the amount of waste that we produce as human beings. It's terrifying to think what we've done, and at the same time, the divine order of things, the natural way, the way of the Tao, the way of the natural order of God, of the divine, that needs to be in balance. The world needs to be in balance, needs to be in universe, and there really is. When you think where this planet came from, it's obviously came through some sort of divine something or other. Something has created it, something's allowed it to come into fruition. So there's a balance to that, and when you look back at ancient civilizations, going back a long way, 10, 20, 30,000 years, depending on what kind of reports of history you believe, what accounts you believe, and the stories that you pick up along the way. There's certain stories that, certain civilizations were messing about with the actual fabric of nature, very much the way that we are doing just now. When you, and this is where I get, and I've seen it with my daughter a couple of times. For me, there only is male and female. That's the way that it's meant to be. It's yin and yang. It's black and white. Now you can have a different, sexual preference or orientation, but in terms of the natural way, there only is male and female, and that isn't my way. That's God's way. That's the divine way. That's just the way that it is. And the way that it is just now, the challenges that we face, where a lot of these young children coming up, that no matter what your belief system is, there's something that's going on. There's something that's being brought into this environment that's making that change, because that isn't the natural way it's meant to be. And then you can look at the foods and the environment and the medications and all that kind of stuff as to why that is. But when you take it back, no matter what your belief system is or how intelligent you are, there only is male and female. No matter what you say, that's just one of the things you can't. There's nothing you can. It doesn't matter what your argument is. That's the way it's meant to be. So the world is upside down and back to front just now, and the amount of darkness that I can see, that I've seen over the years, and the challenges that we face, I've been saying for many years now, there's a literal fight on for our souls. There's a fight on for your children's soul. There is just now. You can see that in the music. You can see that in the what's on some of the kids programs, some of the cartoons. Some of the hidden imagery that you can see. And once you can see it, once you see through that veil, and that really happened for me when I came back from that first enlightened experience. When I came back and I started to see things in a different way, then you see it everywhere. You see the the deception, and you see the lies, and you see the trickery. Again, that's an awareness thing. That's a different level of awareness. And once you see it, you can see it in everything. And it's everywhere. And for the first period when I was going through that was hugely challenging. It really was, because it's so many people are ignorant to it. And one of the things I called that lady yesterday was ignorant. And let me explain ignorance. Ignorance just means you don't know. Ignorance and being ignorant does not mean you're thick or you're daft or you're stupid. That's not what it means. Ignorance just means that we don't know. And ignorance, Jesus, Jesus, Krishna, Lord Krishna and the Buddha, they said the same thing. There's a few things that they all say very similar, and one of the things they said was that ignorance is our only sin, and ignorance just means that we don't know. And some would say that's by design, and I feel that myself as well. We human beings come in from a space of the divine. We come in as children of God. One of my friends used to say, which I love, children of God. When we die, we go back to that, but we come in as this innocence, this divine innocence, perfection. And again, it's like when somebody's reading the newspaper, especially the elder generation, when they read something, they believe it. That's because of that innocence. We believe that because somebody says something, we believe it to be a truth. At a certain level, and that absolutely is not the case in a lot of ways, so that ignorance, it doesn't mean, as I just said, that you're daft, or you're thick, or you're stupid, or you're a wee bit slow. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you don't know. So someone, as she did yesterday, having a go at me when she has no idea what it is that this work is, the attempt to do with it, and not even the attempt, it's literal fact of what this work does for people. Then I would absolutely identify her as being ignorant, because she doesn't know what she's talking about, because she's never experienced it. Once she's experienced it, then she would have an opportunity to say, right, okay, this is my take on it. And if her take was still the same after it, then that would be okay. That's at least you've came and experienced it. But they just take a snapshot online, and she even took it a wee bit further. She called it almost Luciferian. And at that point, it's like, that's when I had to block her. That's when I had to, she was quoting some study from 1974 in terms of the work that I was doing and the way that I was doing it, and how it was my ego and all this kind of stuff. And you're going, you have no idea. And anybody that knows me, anybody that's been on about this work, then they will know absolutely the intention behind it, and how it absolutely, I got it for myself. My intention there was to pass it on so you can get it for yourself, and what it is that you're trying to get for yourself. That's the direct experience of the divine, because that's what I believe fixes everything. That's why my focus is always about the solutions. What's the answers? What's the solutions? I know how bad it is. I know the horrors of the world. I know how challenged we are as a species just now. I believe as a species we are on the line. Every other species on the planet is on the line, mostly thanks to man. So why should we be any different from that? So the challenge is, to stay. Once you can see the light, is how you stay in the light, and then what even is the light, and that's what this work is all about, and that's why people need to come and experience it. The way that I did it was based on the back of a long intentional journey. It was 17 or 18 years every single day after almost losing my life. And for whatever reason, when I come back from that experience, my number one question was like, number one, who am I? That was my question, because I knew I wasn't Jim McFadyen, the physical body, the being, the guy that had so many things going for him. I knew I was, that was just the things that I did in terms of my job and the money that I had and my significance and all that kind of stuff, the low level human consciousness. I knew it wasn't that. So my question was, who am I? And then number two, my second question was, what is this life experience all about? And that was really the fuel for my fire. That was a fuel that drove me, that devotional drive every single day, to go and, very quickly from personal development into spiritual development, to discover exactly that, who am I? And that came through Wayne Dyer, and it came through Ram Dass, and it came through the other spiritual teachers, many of them, primarily the system Saj Marg, which has now changed its name to Heartfulness. Again, that's in disarray just now as well, but at the time, the master of that system, man called Chariji, and then Babaji, who I spoke about in a previous video. My daily meditations was all about, direct experience of that which, we know as God, and, what is God? What is the divine? What is it all about? And it isn't about religion. That's the really important thing that you need to understand here. I am not talking about religion. I'm talking about spirituality. I believe that religion separates. religion, and almost every war that's going on in the world and has been going on is really about the significance of one set of people to God, and how we are more significant than they are or you are, and let's fight to the death. That's absolutely with the Catholic Church. When you look back to the Catholic Church, I have huge challenges with the Catholic Church, and I grew up a good Catholic, but you look at the churches and you look back as to where the wealth came from, and who had to die for the gold, and what they did to basically, in the name of God, which to me is all about control. Religion is all about control, and religion is it's an entry point. I think it was Vivekananda that said that it's great to be born into organised religion, but it's terrible to die in it. Vivekananda, I think it was, a great Indian saint. So great to have that kind of training ground in the beginning, to go to church, or whatever your belief system is, wherever you're born at wherever it is in the world, different parts of the world, to go in and be in that environment, and for a lot of people it's a good thing, in terms of a lot of the practices and the principles and the ideology behind it, the family values and being your best and doing your best, absolutely. But at the end of the day, the plan with all of that should surely be not just to sit and pray to God, and to feel good once a week, but as I discovered, to discover the divine, and all that is divine, that it's actually inside you, and you don't need to go and sit in a church, or certainly for anybody to give it to you. I was talking to one of my students yesterday about not that long ago how the Bibles were basically in Latin, and that was because the only way that you could access it was through the priests basically talking and deciphering it for you in Latin. And then you need to remember that a lot of that information was withheld, and also a lot of the information is many thousands of years old, and a lot of it was like second, third and fourth hand, and passed on, and at that point you need to kind of question. I've always believed that unless you see it with your own eyes, unless you can have like direct experience of it, that's when I was saying about the last video about Wim Hof, when you hear people talking about how amazing Wim is, and they've never met him, and they just get a snapshot of what they hear him talking about online, which is like a pre-rehearsed stage show, and then when you actually see behind the veil and you hear him talking and how vulgar he can be, and see the way he behaves in certain situations, then you've got the direct experience of it. Then you can start to make your own mind up, based on the reality of what's in front of you. And religion is the exact same. We're taking second, third, fourth hand generation that has been passed on, and also as well a lot of the one of my teachers, one of the Indian spiritual teachers, Babaji, talked about how Jesus and how the apostles were nowhere around about him. That was basically stuff that was handed on much later on. How St. Paul, and basically was like the clerk, and how he, the information that he brought through, and how they documented it, and then how they passed it on. Important to remember as well that Jesus wasn't a Christian. I love that. I absolutely love that. How we stand behind this Christianity, and you think that Jesus wasn't a Christian. And there's a great quote that I don't know where it came from, but it was more or less, what it literally says is that Jesus Christ and his apostles were followers of the way. They followed the way, which is the divine way. And anybody who saw my stuff online, you'll see me say often, the way is the way. I've been saying that for a long time. I actually said that before I heard that quote, which was great. To think that you're heading on the same path as Jesus was on. The way is the way. Which is that's right back to the source. That's right back to him as a being, as a holy being. He was talking about how the Father was inside, each and every one of us, how the God was inside all of us, and that spirituality, that isn't religion, is very, very different, and this work and the work that I'm doing, every single bit of it is leading towards that direct experience. And this is where, unless you come and get on about it, unless you come and hear my story in terms of how I came to these realizations, these direct experiences, but then how I put it together so I can teach it to other people. It starts with breathwork, because this is stuff that goes on in your heart and in your soul. It doesn't happen in your head. I can talk about this for days, and we can, you can argue, the different points of view in terms of theology and how it all goes together, and none of that gives you the experience of it. You know, Wayne Dyer used to say, you can't get wet for the word water. You've got to jump in and actually feel it, and this is like that. You know, you need to experience the divine, and this is where meditation comes in, and that's why, you know, unless you've came and either laid down and been taken through the intentional breath, as I call it, which is used to get you out of your head and stop you thinking. The mind only goes so far. And one of my teachers basically taught me, a really incredible, powerful human being who I was with today, that the divine comes right down through your crown. You know, so if this is busy, if the mind is active, which, let's be honest, for almost everybody it is, almost everybody is trapped in their head. You know, we are in this information age. There is too much information, and a lot of it is just absolute bull. You know, it's just noise. It's white noise. You know, with the stuff that comes into us through, you know, the phones and computers and this information age that we're in. So we're stuck in our heads, and we're stuck a lot of the time, you know, in chronic stress and worry and fear and anxiety. And before you even start to look at the way the body is compromised, the stress levels in the body, what we eat, and what we're surrounded by, both visible and invisible. You know, the worries about the interest rates and lack and fear and war and all that kind of stuff. That absolutely keeps most people in their heads. Some would say by design, you know, and if you don't know how to get out of that, you know, and then meditation is going to be a waste of time. That's why mindfulness doesn't really work for almost everybody, because the breath that it takes to basically slow the mind down and stop the mind. I learned that, you know, the functional breath. It was Patrick McKeown. I had been doing it in my own way, but the way that he taught it was the light, slow and deep breathing. You know, changing the chemistry, changing the biodynamic of your body, you know, the way you breathe in terms of how your lungs operate properly, the biodynamics. And then slowing the breath down. When you can change that chemistry properly, then it brings your focus from the external world and it'll take you back into the inside. And once you go on the inside, that's you back into your feelings. You know, so unless you can actually slow the mind down and I suppose create like a channel in the head, then you're never going to access, you know, this bit here, which is you're trying to get to, which would be the heart and the soul, these upper energy centres. If you're stuck in your head, then you can't really get into your feelings and your emotions. Which is the language of the heart. You know, the information of the intellect and the mind only goes so far. Dr. Hawkins, the author of Power versus Force, who used kinesiology to calibrate all these different ideas, and, you know, I suppose he proved them, because kinesiology is right every single time. You know, and the way he explains it in terms of using your body as a tool that's tapped into consciousness is truly profound and an absolute truth as far as I can see it. But, you know, to check in, as far as the mind goes and the intellect goes, it only goes so far. And when the mind stops, you know, that's where, you know, the information that you can get through your feelings and your emotions through the direct experience is very, very different. And that's why meditation, that's why, you know, most people don't really know what meditation is. Which again is fascinating. Most people think that meditation is just to sit and kind of escape, I suppose, or, you know, not think of anything, just to be quiet, you know, to quiet the mind, like peace of mind. And that isn't meditation. You know, meditation, the purpose, the sole purpose of meditation is a direct experience in union with God. That's what it is, you know, and then that feeds on to, you know, what is God? You know, what is God? You know, what is God all about? What is this thing that we call God? What is the divine? And for me, it's consciousness. You know, for me, it's a field of infinite possibilities. It's a field of energy. It's like a system of divine perfection that everything comes through. The source, that absolutely every single thing comes through. I believe that we come through it. I believe we carry it inside of us. Because we come through it, we come in with it. You'll hear me say, I might not be the full thing, but I absolutely carry a piece of it within me. The old, I think it was Moses, you know, I am that I am, you know, I am God, is what Moses said. And he wasn't saying he was the source, he wasn't saying that he was God itself, but what he was saying, you know, is that the divine, because we come through it, then we absolutely carry a piece of it within us. You know, so to acknowledge that, and then to, you know, through the purpose of meditation, to reconnect back into it, and to tap into it. And the reason that you do that is to take on the power of it. You know, when you sit in meditation and you have a profound experience in meditation, to be in the flow of all the earth, to be in alignment, as above, so below. That's another cracker. That's one of the things that I came back with from my first proper, profound, enlightened experience. And enlightenment just means the direct experience of the divine. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that you're going to be sitting, in rainbows and unicorns and divine light for the rest of your days. That's certainly not been my experience. That's not the way it was for me. It's happened a few times, and I got to, really not just see it, but not just even feel it, but to become it. The realisation that you are it, and it is in you, and you are it. It's that oneness, that union, which is what yoga is all about. Yoke means union with God. That's why so many people spend so much time. The real yogis, the kind of Western yogis, with the Lululemon gear and their leg warmers, and just drinking their coffee and doing all their fancy moves. The body, that's one part, it's just one limb. The movement is just one limb of yoga. But the purpose of yoga is union with God, and it's interesting. There's some really advanced, I'm going to use them, which I hate them, but I'm going to use them, advanced yogis that have been here, one or two in particular, who don't have meditation practices, and I would watch them online, selling their yoga and talking about it. I'm going, how does that work? When do they do a specific brand of yoga? Ashtangas, the ones that I'm kind of thinking about, the couple that I know, and one of them in particular is a big cold water enthusiast, and passes herself off as a yogi, and it's like, there's no divine in it. It's all about her. It's all about the ego. It's all about the money. It's all about the significance in the moves and how you look, and that to me isn't yoga. That's not what yoga is all about. Yoga should be union with the divine. It's union with God. That's real yoga, and that's what meditation is absolutely about, to experience the divine that's in every single one of us. And why is that important? Because that's the light that fixes all the darkness. That's how we fix this world and the mess that it's in. We take it from, the darkness of the ego. That's why I talk about my story, darkness to light. Being in darkness, which is ignorance. The guy that I was when I grew up, and the things that I did to myself. With the addictions and the situations that I got myself into. That's just lower level consciousness. That's the darkness. That's the darkness that I talk about. And then after almost losing my life, and then the devotional pursuit towards the light, which has been every single day since 1997-ish, I would say. Personal development into spiritual development, and then for the last, it's been 25 years, it's been spiritual development, which continues to expand every single day. Again this morning, up early, and into it, sitting in that field of meditation, and the intention absolutely is to connect with God, to take on my power, to tap into spirit, to become inspired, to get into the flow of all that I am. The power that's inside me, and is the power that's inside every single one of us. That was one of the biggest things that I learned when I came back from it. It was like, holy fuck, it's like, because it's in me, I'd spent 18 years every single day towards this absolute, specific goal to become enlightened. Once the Buddha, I learned from the Buddha that once you hear the word enlightenment, nothing else will ever do. That was my plan, to become enlightened. They had no idea what it meant or how I was going to get there. But, it was just a long process, which I will talk about, the different ways that and the different stages to it, for those that are interested in it. I'm going to talk a lot about that and the way that it taught me. And I don't believe it takes 17, 18 years. It can happen in one moment. And certainly what I'm now doing, that's why I say that the miracles that I am seeing, even just switching off somebody's stress can be a miracle, but real miracles in terms of people finding healing. Again, Wayne Dyer used to say that you can't go to God and ask him to cure your cancer, because God does not know what cancer is. We live in a duality, we live in a black and white, yin and yang, this human experience. The duality of being a human being, but as the source of all creation, there's no duality. So God doesn't know what cancer is, So Joe Dispenza is another one who's basically creating miracles just now, scientifically documented miracles, where he's taking people into meditation and he's got them linked up to all sorts of kind of fancy computers and monitors. And I've heard him talk, where he says that 3,000 people or 4,000 people can get into coherence at exactly the same time. He's got them all linked up to kind of brain scanners and all that kind of good stuff. And Joe's taking them through meditation. I believe that came through HeartMath, the way that he does it. and they can see like 3,000-4,000 people get into coherence. Every single person within the room who's linked up, something happens within their brain where the chemistry and the frequency of the brain and every single cell in the body changes at exactly the same time. So there's something happening. There's something going on in meditation. And Joe Dispenza, he's documenting. You'll see it in the testimonials. People that have had cancer that have like spontaneous. They don't call it healings. They have like, I don't know what they call it, they have whether it's a remission or the disease just leaves them. And what they're basically doing is, and that applies to people that have been blind since birth, or they've been born into a wheelchair and they've never walked. When we reconnect back into that divinity that we come through, and that transcends the belief systems or the trauma or the significant event that's taken place, that's separated us from that, which is a lot what this world is all about, the separation game as I call it, keeping us separate from that true power that's inside every single one of us. When we reconnect back to it, then that's when the miracles take place, so to heal yourself from whatever the illness is, whatever the disease is, God is seen as like a vending machine in the sky. Again, I think back to my practice as a good Catholic, sitting with my rosary beads as a wee guy, just rattling the what do you call them, what do you call them again, the 10, the rosary beads, and seeing how many prayers, Hail Marys and Our Fathers you can batter out, and you're basically asking God. God's like a vending machine in the sky where you're basically putting in your coins, which would be prayers, and you're asking for God to basically give you what you need, what's missing in your life. That's a really, that would be a circus understanding, low level, conscious vibration of what God actually is. The divine, the source of all creation. For the healing to take place, then you need to become it. And that's what Joe Dispenza does. That's the way he does it. When I came across Joe for the second time really, I saw his books way back, and I knew who he was way back. And when I was actually on the way back from my Wim Hof method training in 2017, and one of the instructors' wife had been on a retreat with Joe, a 9-day retreat, and she was talking about the miracles that had taken place. She'd actually seen miracles happening that day. And I come back and I was thinking, like, Joe Dispenza, what's he up to? I knew the name and I'd seen his work a wee bit. And then when I tuned into him and watched what he was doing, a lot of the stuff was the same as what I'd worked out for myself. I have had no real teachers since way back in terms of online or, the public stuff. It was all me sitting in silence every single day working it out for myself. That's the way that I got it, and what I experienced with my own healing was, it wasn't me going in and asking for God to help me. It was me shifting my consciousness and my vibration and training it with the work that I was doing, what I was putting in terms of the food and the information and the practices every single day, my belief system, where I was spending my time in my head. And through a long period of time, from the gutters of hell is where I started, and then, up to the light of the divine. That took a long time. There's a load of different layers of me that had to be released and let go. And a lot of healing took place at different stages of it. But eventually, when you get to experience the divine, that's when all the healing took place. And it's not a case of sitting in it and being under the light and being the subject to it. You literally become it. That was my experience. I became it. I felt it. I felt it coming in. I felt the presence coming in the first time that it happened, which had been close to happening quite a few times. And I actually used to get this as a wee guy. I was tiny, and it used to be like this presence that would come into my room, just to terrify me. And I would be lying in bed like this, like a electromagnetic presence in the room, and it would almost paralyse me. It wasn't like the sleep thing with like sleep paralysis. It wasn't that. It was very different from that. And I'd forgotten all about this for probably the best part of 25, 30 years until I started to get really deep into my meditations, like 15, 16, 17 years into my meditation, every single day, sitting in silence. That quote, God's one and only voice is silence. I would just sit there and I would open up and I would ask, and I would receive. And my consciousness and my vibration would be lifted up and healing was taking place. But when it did happen, it was just fascinating when this energetic presence, seemed to fill the room. The time when it did happen, and I remembered, how that used to happen as a wee guy and how it used to terrify me. And the first couple of times that it did come in, it I remember back, I suppose, and it repelled a wee bit. The ego got involved, and I repelled it. But then when I realised what it was, and I was actually able to surrender to it. And surrender just means to surrender. Well, in terms of spiritual, surrender means to hand over to God, to stop being you, and stop being, yourself, and stop needing it to work out in a certain way, and to surrender to the divine, whatever God's will is, to allow that to come through. When I was able to do that, then the presence, when it came in, first I experienced it, I could feel it. But eventually, and again because of all my practices and the books and the teachers that I was blessed with, who were absolutely beside me during that time when I was going through it, and a lot of them were in this world at the time, I was able to, almost, leave the body in terms of the physical senses, and then to become it. You become that field of just divine perfection, and that was what changed everything for me. And when I became it, or rather it became me, then all of the healing took place. Everything changed. Every single bit of it happened, and it happened in an instant. The first time it happened was a couple of hours, and you become it. So nothing is left undone. And as I've spoke about, and I will speak about many times in the future, no doubt, what did it feel like? It felt like unconditional love, and that's what it felt like. It felt the way that I love my wife and my Waynes, my mum, and my dad, and my Doug, and my inner circle. Obviously, to a lesser extent, like real, authentic, unconditional love. That's why when people come here, I'll ask them, have you any Waynes? And if, as long as you're biologically okay, as long as you're not, there's an imbalance, especially for mammies. Men are different. Men are very different. The fact that the females of the species, God bless you, you carry this being inside of you, that feeling, that bond of unconditional love. And unconditional means it doesn't matter what they do. It's unconditional, so it doesn't matter. That's why I think it was Wayne Dyer again. Wayne Dyer seems to be everywhere tonight. The quotes he's saying, the amount of mammies that are basically visiting their sons in jail. Because it's unconditional, you can't switch it off unless there is a chemical imbalance, and that unconditional love, the way that I love, those are dear to me. That's what it felt like. That's what's sitting in this field of divine energy, this divine perfection. That's what it felt like, unconditional love, but love in a way I'd never experienced before. And when you become that love, then everything changes, obviously. And when I came back from it, it's like that feeling of what is it? What just happened? How can I give this to people? How can I help people? What it very, very clearly, the whole thing that God is love, which how many times have we heard that? But, the feeling of love is very, very close to, the feeling of the divine, I do believe. And I feel that we human beings, when we feel unconditional love, that's us really, really close, to the divine. That's us as close to the divine. That's the language of the divine. The divine is only one thing. It is that sacred vibration, and it's all the uplifting stuff, and that's why it's really important when you have the awareness. And this is what I do with my work. That's why I connect people in when they come in. No matter what you're walking in with, I have no interest in the story or where you've been. It's all about where you're going. You need to give your story up. The problem and the solution are absolutely two different places, so we need to get into the positive, uplifting, like reinforcing frequencies, vibrations, emotions and feelings, all the good stuff, things like courage, becoming empowered, gratitude is so important, joy is another cracker. Abraham Hicks says that joy is the key. It took me a long time to work that one out. One of my teachers, Abraham Hicks. Because when you're joyful, you're absolutely in the field of the divine, and once you get to joy, once you become like a joyful being, which, everything obviously changes, but then you're really close to, that place of love, that real, authentic, no standing at the bar, out your nut, bevy or gear or whatever it is, and telling somebody you love them. That's not the love that I'm talking about. It's a sacred frequency, and when you are able to live from that place, which happens first by experiencing it, and absolutely meditation. The intention is to get yourself to that place very, very quickly. Anybody that learns to meditate with me, we're going to reconnect back into unconditional love. And it's really sad for me, the amount of people that can't feel love, the amount of people that are separated from the ability to experience authentic love, like real authentic love. And that's something that absolutely needs to change. And again, we can look at, the way that the world is set up. What is it that actually happens to, in childhood or at different stages of your life, where you can't experience the emotion that is expressing the divine? That to me is something that absolutely must be changed. We need to get people back to, feeling what it feels like to feel these high vibrations, because so many people are trapped in the lower vibrations. So many people are in fear and lack and shortage and worry and stress. some would say by design again. But the good thing is, and the good news I suppose, is when you know how to do it, as I absolutely do, when you can use the breathwork, the intentional breath to get us back inside our heart and back inside our soul, then that divine spark is inside of us. That's something that is there forever. That's the real you. That's the journey of you. That divine essence that we bring into this world. When the body dies, when the meat suit goes, and we pass on to whatever's next, then that essence continues on. So we carry it inside of us. And as I say often, there's nothing to learn with this. It's all about remembering. It's about remembering the real power that's in every single one of us. That's the important part, is to remember. And once we get out the head, once we reconnect back into the heart and back into the soul, by the use of the imagination, obviously the breath work as well, that enables this whole thing to take place. When you do it properly, and you know how it goes together. The intentional breath, as I call my system, the power of intention. The intention is to reconnect back into your heart, back into the self, back into your soul, back into, and when that happens, it's back into connection with each other. And then from that point, we start to think about reconnection with the earth. Absolutely, we have lost our connection with the earth. But the end goal is reconnection with the divine. It's absolutely to reconnect back to that thing that we human beings, most of us, know as God. And once you do that, then the whole world changes. And once you bring that light into your life, once you bring that light, into a conscious, living way of being, then that's how I believe that we fix this world. That's how we bring it back to the way it's meant to be. And that's why I have so many challenges, with the whole truther movement, and the circus, and the darkness of the world, and the kind of the rock stars and the kind of the rappers and the Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. It's in darkness. It's a lot of it's satanic. A lot of it is done by design. And a lot of it's hidden. So you can't actually see it. So once you can see it, okay, great, right, what can we do about it? Because that whole thing is coming down. The world is in free fall just now. The system is coming down. It's done. It's absolutely done and dusted, which is an absolute nightmare for us, because we need it. We need, especially, we have no idea what it feels like to be in, to struggle. Certainly up here in Scotland, in the Western world, and much of the Western world, we don't know what it means to struggle. And the system that we are relying on, this debt-based, the banking system and the debt system and, consumerism, we rely on that. That's how it works. That's how it goes together. And that's not always the way it was. We used to live in the land. We used to live out in the hills and grow our own food and live off the land, and kill animals and be able to fish in the rivers to feed ourselves and have chickens for our eggs and have cows for our milk and learned how to preserve food and different, the different medicines that we can get from the land, in terms of herbs and, different tinctures that we would have made. That wasn't that long ago. And at some point, probably the industrial age, we were enticed from, wherever we lived, up in the hills and the mountains, into these villages. And we were sold a dream, and a system whereby, that was going to do it for us, and, now we are so far away from that. We have so many people have zero abilities, in terms of looking after ourselves. For me, people talk about, obviously the world coming down and crashing. And Armageddon for me is the supermarkets closing. You take somebody's sugar away, and you take their ability to eat. And what that would, just take the sugar away, what that would do to most people inside a couple of days would be, catastrophic in ways you can't even imagine, and that's before you even think about, how easy it is for us, to have drinking water and to have heat. I had no boiler there for a couple of days, for 2 days, and just having no hot water. And this is maybe a cold practice, but it was still, and this is us in getting into springtime. But the thought of like no running hot water, and like central heating, we are so soft in so many different ways, and if the system that we rely on, if it does, go the way that I have felt it's going to go for a long time, again, I feel by divine intervention, but by divine plan, it needs to stop, because the way that it's set up is so top heavy. The few, and the way that it's controlled, and the way us as the kind of, I suppose the peasants, the lower working classes, the minions, the way that it's set up for us, we are reliant on it absolutely, and if it isn't there and it's taken away, then we have got massive challenges. massive problems. And again, that's why I often say, and it's like an internal practice. If you're still, in this lifetime, if it does come down, which please God it doesn't, but if it does come down for whatever reason, I'll be experiencing any kind of real hardship. If you lose your stuff, if the stuff gets taken away, then at that point, we are so attached to it. We are so attached to the material goods in this life. We're so attached to the holidays and the things. And you just had to see what happened to people, during COVID when people couldn't go on holiday. It was like people were losing their shit. So it's so an internal practice, reconnection back to something which is real, because all that isn't real. There's not a bit of it is real, and we are so tuned into it. We are so trapped in it, and this is again another huge challenge that I face with these influencers, in the life they're selling. Especially I see obviously for females as well, but young men, people like your man Tate, and the dream that they're selling. In terms of what success is and how you become successful. And a lot of these young males who have grown up, a lot of them without fathers, a lot of the time that I see. Again, the families, the separation game in the families that was split up for whatever reason, the access to drink, drugs and rock and roll, and obviously things like pornography, and how it's I believe it's designed to split up that sacred family unit. By the time it gets these young men are growing up, then they're looking at people like Andrew Tate, or whether it's Joe Rogan, or some of these influencers, and saying that this is the way to success. And if you need a Bugatti or a Rolex, or your own jet, McGregor's another one. I've been throwing bricks at McGregor for a long time, and so many people believe that he is success. And he, for me, is absolutely, the epitome of the failures of this world. The ego and the excess and what he has become as a human being. And I saw him coming through. My son, I've been into martial arts for a long time, and I watched him come through when he was really a nobody. And then I watched what happened, what success has done to him, and what he's termed as success. And you see him now with the challenges that he's facing, obviously, with his, the addictions and his ego, and the excess. And this was my experience as well. I watched what excess did to me, and I think of the level that he's at and how he's conducting himself, and a lot of the things that he's done that he should be in jail for. Yet he's still, the poster boy, and then you look at things like the UFC, which to me is the WWE. And the reason that I say that, and people don't like that, and I don't mind, I'll speak my truth with this stuff, I really don't mind, but the UFC, Steve Maxwell, for anybody that doesn't know, Steve Maxwell, the very first UFC, the whole thing with the UFC was the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, how it came about, and the very first, the UFC was, the Gracies came in and they basically beat everybody, and Steve Maxwell at the time, he was in the training camp with the Gracies, so he was right in there. And I watched a video, I think he was on London Rail a few years ago, and he was talking about, again, there's another one, your man Rose, another just, anything for money, selling themselves for money. But Steve Maxwell was on this, I caught a clip of it, I wasn't watching the programme, never ever followed that man, your man Rose, but Steve Maxwell was basically talking about how the UFC, it's legally categorised as entertainment, so it's not a sport. And what that means is that it's not, it's okay to cheat, so if you want to cheat with the UFC, then that's all right. And now, I'm not saying every single fight is rigged, absolutely not. I've been watching it for a long time. But at the same time, it's when there's human beings, as my dad says, whenever there's money and humans involved, then you need to be, questioning. You take somebody like Conor McGregor, and you watch, how he is the poster boy and how he is sold as this big success, and the amount of young males that even still, with all these kind of failings and the way he's behaved over the years and what he's done. I think him like punching that guy in the pub, a lot of the sexual stuff, the allegations that were obviously quashed and done away with people believing his own family at the time. It's and this is the thing that people don't really see. They don't, they don't get to they never dig any deeper than just seeing the pictures and the kind of sound bites that they put out, and they seen his new watch and his new boat and all that kind of stuff. Which again, they're selling the dream. And for me, if that's success and that's the way the world is going in terms of that's what you need to be successful, then no wonder that so many of these young men are lost, because if you're on Instagram, and you're watching and you need to get to that place so that you can be fulfilled and successful in your life, then it's going to be a long road, you know. So that's something that absolutely needs to be changed. Is what is success? What's the true meaning of success? You know, for me, you know, a family, you know, a loving family, a loving wife, your children, you know, growing up in a safe, loving, caring environment with both the mother and the father there. That's an absolute starter for 10. You know, being there for your children, and then the simple life. You know, it's hard enough, you know, with all the other stuff, you know, but get through your life as a good human being, as a good person, as a good man or a good woman, you know, doing your best in alignment with the way that it's meant to be, you know, which is divine. Yeah, there's divine laws within this place that we live in. There really is. The elements in Mother Nature is set up in a certain way. It's supposed to be a specific way, and you know, the jungle and the zoo and the circus and everything that comes with it, you know, the drink, the drugs, the rock and roll, the sex, the porn, you know, how cheap, you know, all of that is just now. You know, I hear about it and I see it in terms of, you know, how animalistic it is, you know, and that's been done by design. We human beings are not meant to be like that, you know, and the evidence is, as always with us, you know, people who want to come and have a go at me, all you need to do is look at the evidence and ask the really simple question, like, how is it going? Look at it and see how it's going. You know, how many young people, you know, that are basically thrown about, you know, in terms of their bodies and their inhibitions, and how is it going for them? How happy are they? How joyful are they? Most of them are not. You know, most of them are trapped in addictions in one way, shape or form. The amount of people that are lost in addiction and don't even know it. You know, we think of things like sugar and food and caffeine, you know, and the internet and the phones before you even get to the really detrimental stuff like the drugs and the gambling and, you know, the sex and all that kind of stuff. There's so many things. There's so few people who don't have any addiction in their life, you know, and that's again done by design to keep us suppressed and to keep us trapped. You know, so the darkness of the world is absolutely real, but the light and the solutions are there. They really are. I know them. There is a solution. No matter what it is, there is always a solution. And the solution takes place by the reconnection back to the true self, back to the divine. That's the way we fix this. That's the only way to fix this. Back into the natural order of things. The way that it's meant to be is the way that we fix it, and that's a long road, and it isn't an easy road, and it's a road that may not even happen. It's a destination on that road that may not even happen, but that's the work, and that's the intention with this work, you know. And for me, you know, giving people the experience of it, you know, teaching people to breathe so they can manage their nervous system, teaching people to breathe so they can influence their immune system, you know, teaching people to breathe so they can learn how to sleep properly and give themselves a break. As a starter for 10, you know, just the ability to switch off and give yourself a break from it. You know, but then once you get beyond that stuff, the kind of basic stuff, cold exposure would come into that as well. You know, that's why I don't really shout too much about cold exposure. Now, that's a basic, you know, cold exposure should be a basic. But once you get beyond that stuff and you take care of the kind of fundamentals, you know, then going inside and then this spiritual journey, which I believe is the only real kind of purpose of this lifetime. You know, it should be, I believe, to experience union with the divine. And I believe it's available and accessible to anybody. I really do. If I can do it for where I started, then I believe that anybody can get it. You know, and that's why, you know, when somebody comes in with ignorance, somebody comes in and has a real go at me, then, you know, coming from that place of they don't know what they're talking about, at that point they need to go. I have nothing to say to them. I refuse to argue. I refuse to fight. I'm coming from my experience. But the good news is, for anybody who's interested with this work through the Vortex, through this Centre for Wellbeing, I have worked it out for myself, and then I've passed it on to so many people now. 10,000 people easily, I would say, have come in and I've went through the experience. Most of them for free, almost all of them for free. Up until the last couple of years, it's changed a bit because it's now professional. And the money that I'm taking, that's now going towards the greatest good. That's now going towards how we can take it to the world. You know, that so more people can come and experience it. The plan is to take this to the world. The plan is to get people to come in, you know, and no matter what the belief system is, I have dealt with so many skeptics that come in and you can see it as if this isn't going to get me. This is going to be a waste of time. But, you know, because of the way that I've worked it out and because of my certainty that it is in every single one of us, when people lie down with an open heart and an open mind and they go through that breath work and they reconnect, you know, back into themselves, back into their heart, back into their soul, back into their feelings, back into their emotions, and they remember, how they're meant to feel, or how they're able to feel. So many people go through this life joyless. When I take people to the feelings of like real joy, when's the last time you felt joy? And I watch what happens. I see the light of the divine that's inside of us get switched back on. I can literally see it in them. And the amount of people that come to, and they're like 20, 30 years younger, some of them. And it's because they remember that divine spark that was taken away at some point. Whether it was the school system, whether it was the trauma, whether it was the abuse, whether it was the addiction, whether it was the heartache or the heartbreak, or whatever it is that society and this world has done to them. It's always in there, and that divine essence, the real you, that's very, very difficult to basically uproot and unsettle so you can't access it no matter what it is. And that's why when I say miracles, things like the real heavy stuff, the PTSDs and the sexual stuff, that the traditional therapies and the medications and the doctors, none of that fixes it, none of that touches any bit of it. But when you reconnect back into your heart and back into your soul, I've seen miracles take place. I have literally seen people that have been 20, 30 years on a healing journey with really not making any progress. And what you need to understand, and I'm going to talk about this in great depth, is how traditional therapy works. When you're focusing on the problem, when you're talking about the event and how it went wrong and what happened, this is my challenge with things like the 12 steps. I've been in the rooms, I've actually held like sessions for addiction. Being an addict myself, negative and good addictions, but when you focus on like who you were or how bad you were, or the problem, and you talk about it all the time, again, it's that law of attraction. You shine a light into anything and it will absolutely get bigger, so again, the problem and solution are two different places. So that's why all focus is on the solution, and the solution for me is reconnection with yourself, into your heart, into your soul, reconnection with each other, as a species. That's one of the most profound things that I see when people reconnect back into themselves. And then, a lot of times I'll make people hug each other, and it's a heartfelt hug. Reconnection with each other is so important, connected to yourself and then each other, and then reconnection with the divine, absolutely. And then things like reconnection with the planet, the getting your feet in the earth, getting yourself into the rivers, getting yourself into the streams. Reconnection with the planet is just a fantastic way to heal your body, heal your mind and your spirit. Everything gets better. So it's all about reconnection. This work is all about reconnection. It's all about self-reliance. It's all about getting it for yourself. I never ever tell anybody what to do. I just share. I'm basically sharing my own journey of the stuff that I've picked up along the way. And what I see every single day is the people that go on about it, things get better. They really do. And that's why I suppose the programme that I'm now being proactive about. For a long time, I was just basically allowing people to find their way towards me. But now, thanks to two incredible souls that they found their way into the vortex towards the kind of end of last summer, who all of this stuff, the digital stuff and creating the information with the reels and the videos and taking it to the world. Their intentions to help people as well. They have been sent by the divine, I do believe, just beings of absolute light are here to help. So thanks to that, in my previous 26 and a bit years of work on myself and working out with myself, and now getting it to a way where it's basically one experience that reconnects you back in. And then at that point, the intentional life, which is what the programme is all about. I'm going to do another podcast just talking about the programme, which is all about intentional living. The programme is your programme. What is it that you need to do to put a smile on your face, to be happy, to be joyful? It's different for everybody. For me, it's walking my dog. For me, it's being in nature. For me, it's meditation. That's the stuff that brings me into alignment with how I'm able to feel and how I'm supposed to feel. So the programme, this intentional online group, this community of people who are coming in with all sorts of stuff. What they're doing is basically learning how to live with intention. You're learning the breath work, learning about meditation, relaxation, how to sleep properly, learning about cold exposure. And it's all about the intentional life. There's many, many levels to it, and your life becomes your teacher. The awareness in your own life as to what you're doing to yourself. Nobody's doing it to you. That's the cracker my wife came up with. It's like, it's me again. What am I doing to myself? That's all about your awareness, and then the power of intention, obviously, how you make it better, and then get into that place of how it's meant to be. Full alignment with all that you are, which is divine. We are divine. Human beings are divine in nature. And that's the light that we need to bring back. That's the light that's going to fix this world. And that's why I spend no time with the clowns the circus, no matter at any level. I refuse to fight, and I am all about the divine and helping people reconnect back to the divine. I believe that the information that comes through me as a channel, as a bridge to help people reconnect back to it, because it's universal. I've done events in the past where there are many different, from all over the world, different nationalities, and one event last year I did in the summertime, a business event, there was people who could barely speak English, never mind understand me in Scottish, but at the end of it, there was at least 4 different people came up from all corners of the world, and it was basically about the understanding of the union of what God was, and really interesting them, coming from especially the East. They understand, they've got a different understanding of the Tao and the way and the elements and Mother Nature than we certainly do in the Western world. The spirituality, and this is still a wee bit mad to some people. It's still taboo, although it's changing now, and that's why that's why this work is so significant. I do believe is to make that normal, because it's the way it's meant to be. Every single person on this planet should have absolutely an experience of who they really are and what they come from, and we don't need to die to experience that. So darkness to light is the plan, for the greatest good always. My intention is to help as many people as possible get this through the experience. It's not going to be understood with the posts or the me talking about it. It needs to be the experience. And that's why, get on about it. If it calls you and you're looking to learn and you're looking to reconnect, so many people are soul searching just now. So if you're looking for a shortcut to reconnect back to it, then I do believe, in fact I know there is a way. So onwards and upwards for the greatest good always. Love and light to you and yours. I send you my best as always, and I look forward to seeing you soon. God bless, and bye for now.